Hi, and welcome back to this video series on how to make an environment in Unreal. In the last video, we left off with replacing the initial block out with a modular one. Now, as you can see here, I did add a few more details after the recording. I'll quickly go over those. They're not as many as it may look like. Yeah, it looks a lot more detailed, but there aren't that many new models in this scene. The things I did add are some windows, obviously, and a few of those pillars. You can see a few more pillars. I also added this indent with its own unique piece. I added some doors in there. They're really basic. And this piece is a little bit more intricate, but it's just another pillar in principle that I'm just tiling across there. Same with this piece, just a few pillars. And then for all these edges, they're the same models as you saw in the previous video. The only thing I did was I modeled in a few of those edges based on the reference here. I studied the reference a bit more, and I tried to come up with a fairly modular layout that's as close as possible to the reference while still being reusable. So yeah, this door is the same. I didn't touch this one. Yeah. Oh yeah, another thing I did was I quickly threw together a little bit of a backroom here. I'm not gonna dress this up. It's just to, like, in case you peek through these doors, there's something behind it, not just a void. So yeah, it's just me copy pasting some walls. That's it really. Yeah. So the next step. Originally, the plan for the next step was to take these models, which you can see here, and just start making a refined version of them. But I'm going to do it a little differently for this project. And in this case, I'm going to start with the textures actually. I'm going to do this because we already have so much information in the scene. We first start with know all the proportions. We know what objects are going to be in the scene. It's all layout here. These are the objects, except some of the set dressing with the carpets and the little items we're going to place. These form the main bulk of the whole project. And yeah, so we know everything about this because of the references. We know what the textures are going to be, the colors, the shapes, the details. And because of that, I think it's safe to make the trim sheets and the titleable textures and then adjust the models based on that. I think it's going to be a bit quicker, a bit easier to work with. In a case where, let's say I would make a project where I still have a lot of questions about what are the textures going to be, what would be best for the atmosphere of the scene. In that case, I would usually start with modeling, maybe lay out a few of the titleable textures already for the big surfaces like the stone walls, the floors, and then come back and do the trim sheets for the more intricate models later. But yeah, another thing I want to point out is that I thought for this project it would be best to apply a workflow that's new for me as well, and that's the use of Zbrush. I think this is a great opportunity for me to learn something new as well, and that brings me back to a point I brought up very early on in this series in episode 1, where I think it's really important to always try and learn something new with every project. There should be even if it's just one, there should be a goal in there to try and tackle a technical aspect. So let's say maybe you want to improve your lighting, maybe you want to improve your textures. It doesn't matter. What you'll see is that it'll improve all the other aspects as well of the project, in my experience at least. This goes for both 2D and 3D work. And in my case, I think in this case, this will be a great chance for me to improve my Zbrush skills and my texture skills, because I think those topics I can still improve a lot on. And yeah, so I've done one trim sheet already. I'll show you that in a moment, because yeah, we already planned ahead a little bit with the textures in episode 1. We know a few things. This scene is mainly made out of stone and wood, so that means we'll probably need a trim sheet with all the stone details, and then a trim sheet with all the wood details, and then probably 2 or 3 tileable textures. One for the floor, one for this stucco wall, and then one for the bricks. So I've done one of those. I'll show it right now. Here you can see the stone trim sheet. For those who don't know what a trim sheet is, it's basically it's a row of there are rows of tileable strips basically, and you can yeah, lay out long UVs along one of these strips, and it'll tile in high quality. If let's say if you want to make a bridge, for example, a bridge is really large, and if you would give the whole thing its own texture, it would be way too big. So you have to rely on tileable textures. But a bridge could be made out of lots of small, like thin, long objects, like all the ropes and the railings. So what you could do is fit them all on one texture, like this, maybe a stripe for the stripes on the wall and a cable one, etc., etc. And that way you only need one texture that'll has all the different elements of one larger object, and it'll look really high quality, and it's actually a really small texture. Now I want to give some credit to Polygon Academy. I followed their tutorial from so I could accomplish this. It's a lot of fun, and what we're gonna do in this video is go for this workflow, but I'm gonna do it for the wooden trim sheets, for all the wooden details in the scene. I hope I'm gonna be able to fit this in an hour or two. It's gonna be tight, so I already did a little bit of planning. I'll show it in here. There we go. You know what? Let's actually step back a little bit. You see a few planes here. This is the base I used for the stone texture. How I got to that is I took a plane, a square plane, and I divided it a few times. And then I asked myself, what kind of texel density do I want? The texel density is how many pixels do you want to fit within 1 meter in the game? And I went with a texel density of 256 pixels, which is, I think, around the industry standard at the moment for a first-person game. So the next thing I would do is I would scale down this little plane so that every strip would sort of align with the thickness of all the what do you call it? All the lines, all the edges of the objects in the scene. So, for example, this would be a strip. This would be a strip. I want them to sort of fit closely on this plane. Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. Then you have this thicker part here that would fit on here. It's sort of the same thickness. It's a little bit guessing, but I'm surprised how close it actually got. Yeah, so I did that. And then what I do is I go into my UVs, and I will find a map size that'll allow for this square to perfectly fit within this UV space. And this works because I made sure that this is scaled in full numbers, so it's 2 by 2 meters, I believe. And I came up with a texture size of 512. This means that if I want a pixel density of, if I want to have 256 pixels per meter in my scene, and for me to for these trims to match all the details in the scene, this texture has to be a 512 by 512 pixel texture, which is not that high. It's actually really nice. So this is the base information I start on, and then what I do is I make a little list, like you see here, where I plan out all the different textures I want on this trim sheet. Check from recording. Yeah. So this is for the wood. I went over all the wood details in the scene, and I planned out how thick they are, which ones would best fit the which strip would fit best with the texture in the game. The wooden one is a little bit more difficult because there's a lot more different shapes and different textures, and there's also these smaller, more square ones for the doors, for example. So I'm planning on dividing this in 3 bits and then texturing it accordingly. Yeah, so I find out that. Then what I do is I make this block out in Maya and then export this into Zbrush and start sculpting it. And then we're going to finalize it in Substance Painter. So that's what we're going to do right now as well. Yeah, so I'll put this on the side. I'm going to grab this base. And yeah, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these things. Edit mesh, mesh separate. No, I have to select these edges, edit mesh, detach, I think. Yeah, that's what I have to do. Edit mesh, detach, and then I can do mesh separate. So now we have these separate things. And now I'm going to look at this reference, for example, the wood dark. Like I want this strip to be this dark wood, and it's also going to be the size of the door, and both have these little indents. So that's something I want in my texture. So for this, I'm going to add a little indent like that. Which one's next? Oh yeah, the top one is actually not going to be wood. It's going to be steel because there's a lot of steel windows. That shouldn't matter. I'm going to put this in the wood texture because it is part of the same model as the wood. It's the part that has wood. And this way I don't have to add multiple different materials onto the same object. It's a little cheaper. How do I want to do this? I think the top one is going to remain really basic. So I'm going to leave it like that. You know what? Maybe I'll do something like that. We don't need the side bits either. There we go. What's next? Oh, now we have the more intricate ornaments. For this, I actually need to divide this once more, or else we won't have enough. Okay. Now actually I'm going to double check because I planned these to be the ceiling bit. So I'm going to grab that ceiling part. I'm going to check if it would fit if I do that. Because I think it's actually a bit too small. Yeah, but now that I look at it, it's not that bad because you see it's mirrored horizontally. So what we can do is just mirror the UV halfway, and that should solve that problem. Okay, it's no longer a problem. So the top one is gonna be that. Let's see, what kind of figure do we want? It's the reference. It has. It's a bit random. I'm gonna pick there's different patterns for each one of them, but I'm gonna pick this one and just repeat that. It's basically two small ones. What? Oh. So, where's my menu? When I there we go. So this is going to be 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Okay. Come on. Maybe if I add one more. Perfect. Now what we could do, looking at this, is we could actually get all of these figures in there and then just cut them out in the final UVs, but that means I have to add more different shapes for this roof, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Yeah, so how are we going to do that? No, yeah, I think I know how I'm going to do this. I'll leave this layout, so that's the same across all the different parts. Gonna add a bit of an offset. How thick does this have to be? I think something like that. I'm gonna move this inward. Now I wonder why this one is hard edges. It might mean that there's some overlapping shapes. So there we go. Now, do we want to add something else? Yeah, so just one more thing I want to do to the shape, and that's bevel this edge. There's actually a few interesting bevels. That's good. Now what happens if I do this afterwards and not simultaneously? Yeah, that's not quite what I want. I'm looking at these edges. There's a hard edge, and then it sort of bevels inwards. Let's move these inwards first. It's a little tedious, but you know what you're gonna do about it. I'll try to go through this as fast as possible. But a good base is gonna save me a lot of headache later on in Zbrush. It's just gonna create some n-gons, but we'll fix those later. Also, since everything here is gonna be merged down into a flat plane, because it's gonna be normal effect. It's gonna be normal. Like bevels are actually a good thing because you will not see this depth here. This will fall away. You can see that this tapers down, but you cannot see that this 90-degree angle edge goes downward. So yeah, it'll benefit us to make this a bevel as well. But how I'm gonna do that exactly, I'm still trying to figure out at the moment because it's quite a unique shape. Might have been better to test this on uh, one part before doing it everywhere, but well. Almost there. There. So now let's see if we can make an interesting bevel on this shape. So I want something like that, and then scale this inward. It doesn't work. Let's remove it again. Maybe if we add a little edge in between. Yeah, I think that's sort of what I want. So I'm going to do this for all of them now. Connect them. Let's straighten them out. It's a little cleaner. You know what we could do? It's even easier. Don't know why it took so long for me to realize. Let's just delete this. Do it only on these ones. It's going to save us a lot of time. And then just copy paste it over, because it's the same thing anyways. So we're going to match this. I think that's pretty close. Now we're going to take these edges. I'm going to bevel them. Let's actually do it like this, so it sits nicely on this edge. We're going to merge it so they're no longer overlapping, they're actually the same edge. Take these edges and harden them. I think I want to move these inwards a little bit. Yeah, like that. You know what, I'm going to delete this one as well. Now what I'm going to do is, I don't want any slanted edges. You'll see why in a moment. When I'm done with this step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bunch of subdivisions, sort of, to make it a little easier on a ZBrush, so that all the edges are evenly distributed. And if these are slanted, like these ones, what's going to happen is if I'm going to add subdivisions, they're all going to be slightly tilted. Which isn't too bad, honestly, but it's a little bit more annoying when you're trying to sculpt in ZBrush. So yeah, these kind of shapes are definitely the most tedious to make. But I think this is this is definitely the most tedious one. The other ones are they're pretty much just squares, except the bottom figures. Those are again a little bit more complex, but not as complex as this one. But first, let's finish this one before we worry about those. All right. Now I can delete those. And then finally, let's also do it here. Excellent. What we could do is align these. That's actually, it's fine. It's all looking clean. Cool. So now we duplicate this over once. I'm gonna delete this half. Gonna move it over. Combine them and merge these vertices. Then I'm gonna copy it again and once more. Actually, there we go. For the last one, I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna combine all of them. Combine again. Delete any overlapping vertices. Oh, and before I want to continue, I want to make sure all of them are aligned, like the pivot at the center. So before I continue, I'm gonna delete these empty groups. Take this, name it actually, trim wood, and put it on the center. We don't need to see anything else. So now we have this one. Let's call it trim wood A. Grab this one, trim wood B. This is C. Let's continue with the next one. Let's save, and the next ornament is this shape. Okay, so this one has like a bunch of stuff going on. We're going to break this down. So you have this back part here. And then you have this little ring, and then a detailed like little trim. Again, I'm probably just going to make one of them, like they're all different. So how do I want to divide that? Okay, let's grab the, which one's sitting there? You move over. Let's grab this thing again. How long is it? It's about a third. Okay. So what if we divide this into 3 bits? So what we could do is make this part this front part, and then these ones the styling bit. Yeah, we could do that, but it's going to be a bit more difficult to UV thinking. Yeah, sorry if I'm falling a bit quiet. I'm thinking how to divide that. You know what? Maybe I'll come back to that in a moment. Which one's the next on the list? 3. Okay, this is this little strip here. This one's pretty straightforward. Yeah, it has a lot of detail on there, but it's not that complex, like shape-wise. It's all in the texture. So what I'm gonna do for this one is I'm gonna add 2 indents. So something like that, I think. Move it inwards. Do it again. And that looks pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna squash it a little bit because I want the inner part to be a bit thicker. Yeah, that's I think that's pretty accurate. So that's that one. Next one, it's the old wood. It's this destroyed stuff. I think for that one, what we're gonna do is just a good old move in like that. You know what? Not even that. Do we even need that? I don't think so. No. Just gonna do that in Zbrush. Next one, wood large. That's this strip. That's just some basic wood. So that's it's the same story as this one. And then the last one, this one was a bit more complex. We're going to divide this into 3 parts, like that. And one of them is going to be a door piece. Actually, do we want this? Yeah, so this one, I wonder, could we divide this into 3 bits? Want something that's more square. Yeah, I think this is a perfect square. I hope. Well, at least it's closer. Yeah, it's a perfect square. So this one is going to be a disfigure. I'm just going to imprint that in the texture. The second one, I was thinking of using this part. There's also a like another more complex shape, which is this one. So that's 3. Then we have shape, and then we have room for one more. Okay, I'm gonna grab the door. I think I'm gonna model one of them. Okay, so this is definitely too small. So that's not gonna work. Hmm. If I do it like this. This is definitely a bit more complex than the stone wall. So that's one shape. What I think I'm gonna do is just reserve these for some fancy ornaments. Yeah. One of these ornaments actually is, or two of them are covered in planks like this. So I'm gonna add that as well. So again, we're gonna separate these, mesh, oh, detach, and then mesh separate. So these are going to be wooden planks that are kind of offset. Let me actually show you. You can see these planks in the ornaments that are kind of sticking out. So I'm making those separate things for that. You don't need this back piece. And then yeah, these are just they're too small to function as doors. Speaking of the doors, now we're going to make that out of those things, so that's all good. Could be if we tile it. Oh, actually, I know what I'm gonna do. So there's this repeating pattern here that you can also see over here. So one of them is going to be this pattern, and the other one is going to be this pattern. And I think that settles it. Oh, not yet. Zbrush. Cool. Okay, that's doable. In that case, we're gonna extrude this as well. Move the backside. Almost done. Extrude this one. Voila. It's all good. It's all good. I'm leaving the sides on this one because it's an isolated shape. That means I can also sculpt the sides, like with the rocks here. They don't have to tile because they're kind of sitting neatly next to each other. But this is one continuous piece, so I don't want this to abruptly end at the edge. So that's why, let me close this one for performance. So that's why this one doesn't have an edge and this one does. It'll be more clear when we jump into ZBrush. And finally, we still have to do this ornament with the top bit. So one of them is definitely going to be this strip. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to do it like that. Either way, the whole thing is it's going to be in ZBrush. But how I do want to do it is separate it here. Yeah, okay, this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to separate this. I'm going to extrude this part. And then extrude these together. All right, so we have our base. Now I have to do a few more things before we can start actually working on it. One of them is some of these shapes still need a bit of depth. So this one, for example, doesn't have these top and down edges. You don't pin, thank you. Move you over there. Is there anyone else? Yeah, so these top parts still. Take the top part. This part. Cool. Once more. Move this over. And then like that. Okay, the top one is gonna be steel. So do we actually, I'm still not too sure if I want these edges. I think I'm gonna remove them and just gonna sculpt it in ZBrush. Yeah, so I'm gonna remove those. Move this over. I think that's all of them. Yeah. So they're all they're all extruded correctly. Now let's clean it up a little bit by in the outliner. It's D1. This is E. F. How did I do it with this one? Yeah, so here you can see what I'm going to do next. Oh yeah, so one thing is I'm going to have to merge them before exporting. But before that, yeah, the first thing we're going to do is is this correct? A, B, C, D, E. Yeah. Okay. Save. Next thing I want to do is divide these into like evenly spaced squares. That way it's going to subdivide a bit better. It's almost an hour in already. Yes, this is a bit of a timely yeah, it takes a while. Now this one. All right, almost there. Oh, this one doesn't like it for some reason. Okay, once more. There we go. Yeah, that will do. This doesn't have to be perfect, but yeah, as long as there's sort of squares and sort of evenly spaced. But even that doesn't matter if it's a little inconsistent. Yeah, it's not too much of a hassle to do it correctly. Let's do this one as well. Oh, this one is sometimes they're acting a little difficult. It's a single one there. Right, and then save the most difficult one for last. But we did some cleanup beforehand, so that saves us a bunch of time. You know what? I think that's actually enough already. Yeah, so now the final step. So we're going to merge these. This one's good, this one's good, this one's good. I'll merge these. And these are good. So now we're going to do a final naming check, and then we're going to go into Zbrush. So D, E, F, G, where are you? You're H. Voila, we got our base mesh. Sure, all the pivots are all 0, 0. They weren't. Good that we checked. Freeze transform. Now we're going to export these as OBJs. Folder, which trim, export selection. No, look at what trim. Here we go. Trim woods A, B, C, D, E, F, almost done. G, and H. Great. So now we can go into Zbrush. We will see. I think this is how you do it. I'm always terrible at this step. Come on. Okay. You know what? Let's actually make a new document. I'm not seeing it. What if we do it this new document? This one works. Now if you replace it with oh man, yeah, you can see I'm pretty bad with Zbrush. Why is this? Come on, there we go. Ah, there it is. Wait, this one only has one edge. That's not supposed to be like that. Okay, it's something a bit bizarre. All right, I figured it out. What we're gonna do is make a new document. Then start with a cube because this one works. I'm gonna replace it with our boy. And then we're gonna go into C plugin. Yes, multi-band. We're gonna add in all the other ones. It's quadrangulated. There we go. Here's our trim sheet. Let's rename this one. So it's still called cube. Trim wood A. Next up, I like to save it. Wood trim. Now the next thing is I turn off smooth, because if I divide, this is going to happen, and we don't want that. So I'm going to turn that off, divide it a few times, and now if I turn on smoothing, it has a fairly sharp edge. I'm going to do that a few times, so let's 1 mil, something like that. Oh. I'm going to do that for all of them. So next one. Press it 3 or 4 times. Cool. Next one. Okay, I really hope this one holds up, because this one is a lot more complex. So it's the poly count at the moment. I'm gonna turn on smoothing, divide it 4 times. Ah, it worked. Awesome. As you can see, because we did the cleanup, these are all, like, except here, it messed up a bit. Oh, it quadrangulated the thing. Oh yeah, there's a few triangles in there. Zbrush doesn't like those. Okay, so let's take care of that real quick. Oh, there's a few n-gons in here. Didn't quite carry through. Maybe this is the issue. Sometimes my derps a little. Yeah, this is why it looked all funky. Okay, those are good. Could you connect, please? Thank you. Okay, so those are fixed. Now this one. Are there any more who failed? This all looks good. This looks good. Okay, let's make sure there are no overlapping ones. Okay, let's re-export this one. So C. Yeah. But what's important is we know this works. So we're going to go in here. I'm going to delete this. Yes. Now we're going to go into C plugin, multi-append. I'm going to add backend number C. Back in here. Look how it didn't give me an error this time, which is great news. Divide it 4 times and now start smoothing. Oh, this is the wrong one. Whoops. Doesn't matter. It still does happen. I think 400,000 is enough. Let's put C back in order. Okay, let's try it again. divide it, something like that, 4 times, and now smooth. Great. Look, now we have this really complex shape, and it looks really clean in the topology. And if I can do this, you can do this too. I need to go one more. We're almost done with all the prep work. And then we can start sculpting. All right. Next one, geometry, and start smoothing. Great. Now this bot, no, there's one more after this. UE4. Great. Actually, I think I might add one more before smoothing. Yeah, this is actually a bit better. All right, I've quickly fixed the smoothing. Thought it looked a bit better after 5 than 4. So now it's time to sculpt. Let's save before, trim. Okay. So the first one is steel. It's really straightforward shape. I don't know why there's this little dent in there. I wonder, is that in the... It's not a Maya, is it? No, this is perfectly flat. Yeah, it's not Maya. Okay, that's a little odd. That's it. Yeah, it is. It actually is. Okay, let me write it again. Alright, I re-imported it, did it again, and it's gone now. So I guess there was a little imperfection in Maya. Hope it's not with the other ones. I think I saw it in one more, but I'll come back to that later. So saving. So we've turned dynamic, but there's one more brush I actually want. So we go into brushes, trim, and then smooth border. Yeah, I want that one. It's time to start sculpting. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna chip away at the edges. Let's decrease the intensity a bit. Makes it a bit more imperfect. Now, since this is the steel one, I don't want to overdo it. This one is going to be the most subtle one. The woods, I'm going to beat up the wooden one a lot more. Yeah, that works. Bottom edge. This is going a bit too intense. Dial it back a bit. I'm trying to be really gentle here. Okay, almost there. Alright, those are the edges. So the next thing what I want to do is add a few little indents in the surface, imperfect it a bit, so it feels like it's metal that someone hammered on with a hammer. Now, before I'm gonna start with that, I'm gonna put this on a layer so I can erase it if I don't like it. Let's call it dense. If you want to use layers, make sure it's recording, or else it doesn't work as ZBrush. So let's see. Still very new with all the brushes. So let's see which one does the trick. Okay, it's not quite what I want. Maybe if we take the clay brush and then yeah, and then do this. It's not gonna look quite like what I want, but it's a starting point. So we just add some imperfections like this. I really hope this is gonna tile over. If not, we can always just adjust it a bit in Photoshop. Okay. Next up, I want to take the smooth borders again, and let's see what happens if I go over this. It's a little closer to what I want. Don't want it to be like really big holes. So it's going to be like really obvious in the normal map. Okay, we're getting there. Let's deal with these larger grooves. Yeah, something like that. Okay, this one's a bit more stubborn. Okay, I think this is good enough for now. Let's save again. Stop recording. I think, yeah, we actually don't need this many polys. I'm gonna reduce it to 300,000 for now. And let's go to the next one. Oh yeah, this was the cleaner wood, the dark wood strips. This one and the outside of the door. So we're not gonna dent up this one too much. Again, this one also has a, I don't know why they're all indented like this. All right, quickly re-imported it. Yeah, now it's gone again. Good. Attempt 2. Let's turn these invisible. And, there we go. In this case, we might actually, why is it saving again? Yeah, let's smooth it one earlier. It's a little easier to edit. Since this wood, it's can be a little softer. But again, not too much. This is not the outer edge, just this one is. So I don't want to overwhelm this edge too much detail. Okay. The bottom one. This is basically what I did with the stone walls as well, just to chipping up the edges, then adding some imperfections on top, and then bake it for painter. This demo I am a little afraid of whether I'm able to go into painter this recording. Might have to wait till next one, but we'll see. Sometimes I slip up and I do a bit too much damage, but I think that actually adds to the texture, like here. So if you look at it from the side, you can see this little dent here, and here's another one. Makes it look a bit more organic. So now the stop stripe. Come on, okay, this one is it's a bit more stubborn. This brush, sometimes it finds it difficult to grab onto a hard edge. Oh, slipped up again, but it doesn't matter. Now we have some cool little dents there. So what I'm doing right now, like while I'm sculpting these things, I'm trying to think ahead of how I'm going to solve some of the problems I'm going to face in a little bit. A big one I'm thinking of is are all the little ornaments and details that you can see on the ceiling bits. Like, do I want to sculpt those in Zbrush or do we want to do that in Painter? I'm not quite sure yet. I think it would look cool if we do it uh, in Zbrush, because then what we can do is hold up. So I'm gonna do that for the whole edge. But yeah, like it's gonna give a bit more depth if we do it in a ZBrush. We could do it in Painter as well and assign it some height, so it'll look a bit more. It'll look a bit like it's. So it'll look like it's raised a bit, but it's going to be a little less organic or natural if I add damage to it, make it chip. But maybe that's not entirely true. Like there are some good filters in Painter. Okay, I'm not quite happy with this edge. I don't like how it affects the top part if I do this. Like sometimes it adds a little scratch. I don't want that. Okay, I think we're almost there. Almost ready to move on to the next one. I think after this one I'm gonna do the beaten up wooden plank. It's gonna be a lot of fun to weather that with this brush. Okay, how does this look? Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna add a little bit more damage here. I'm also gonna add a different material, I think. The gray one is alright. There's another one. White. This one emphasizes the edges a little bit better, I think. I'm still experimenting with the materials. Again, like it's been doing this for all of them, I think. This one's fine though, so that's good to know. What I mean is there's also a little indent in that one for some reason. These ones as well, they're not supposed to be bent like that. Yeah, it's baked in the thing. Okay, one sec. Okay, it's fixed again. Let's grab the reference. So this one is this is the old wood. So we're gonna beat this up. Right, the other ones. Cool. So I'm a lot less gentle on this this one. Oh. Okay, don't want these tends to align with the top one. You're gonna read that a bit too clearly if you're gonna tile that. Okay. See what happens if I push this further. Yeah, it sort of works, but I think I'll have to go in there with another brush in a bit. So go back in there with the trim dynamic. Okay, I'm gonna actually go in there with the clay buildup. Looks like I'm messing up the texture, but don't worry about it. I'm gonna clean this up again after with the trim smooth. Trim smooth. Okay, let's see. Okay, time for some fine tuning. Not sure how I added this one there. I don't need it. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're gonna go over it again in Substance Painter with a detail pass. But I want the large grains to be in there. I'm gonna add a bit of a hole in here, or I mean like a few of those things, as if insects like ate through them. Now I'll go over it again with smooth borders. Trying to get rid of the obvious brush strokes here. And yeah, I'll come back to this sculpt in a bit when we have a base for the other ones. Let's bring this back a bit. Erased when smoothing. And I think that's it for this one. Yeah, I like that. This actually looks like old driftwood. And then this one, oh, I just saved. And then this one is the like hammered steel. I still have to add some grains in this one. I haven't touched this one yet. Again, I don't like how you can see these edges, so I'm gonna replace that again. Alright, I've re-imported it. I find it funny though, I didn't change the model, I just re-imported it again and did the same steps, so I don't know why that is. Okay, so this shape is a little bit more intricate, so in case I mess it up, I'm gonna add a layer. Call it base. Let's start working on it. I'm gonna keep it subtle on this one, so I don't want to mess up the readability of the angles. Oh, where are we? Yeah, so we're just gonna go over all these edges, like that, and I think to save some time on the recording, I'm going to skip forward and finish off all these edges on this one. So see in a moment. All right, so I've chipped all the edges. Took quite a while, but yeah, it worked out. I also added a bit of some imperfections on the surface. I did the same with the one above it. And yeah, this is pretty much how I go for all of these. I still have to do a bunch more. So I'm gonna do the same for the other ones. And then the next step is to add in the the figures on here. I have those ready as well. And then I'm gonna do a final detail pass. I might take a black and white photo, make some masks out of those, and then use those for some detail information on here. And when that is done, it should be ready for Substance Painter. I don't want to drag out this video much longer because it's already almost 2 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish these other ones with the same level of detail as these, as you have just seen. And then in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to add those figures, those details in there. And then I'll show you also how to export it into Substance Painter. And we're going to texture it over there. That's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, that's pretty much how I approached the textures, or the stone trim texture. I hope it's a bit more informative. Yeah, it's a long and tedious process, especially if you do it in real time. But again, I hope it was informative and somewhat fun to watch. And I'll see you in the next episode where we're going to finish this one. Right, see ya.